Alright, that's green. This being a Sound Goblin stream, we're doing some start of stream sound testing because we did anything. Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's the day that ends in Y.
Yeah, day that ends in Y. Also, OBS did anything, and whenever anything changes in OBS in any way or measure, you should be paranoid and check everything.
We're coming through fine.
Yeah, we certainly didn't talk for like 3+ minutes with the only person being heard being Krampus.
We certainly didn't spend a stream like that.
Yep. Certainly did spend a stream with me muted while playing one of the games or anything like that. Should be so much worse.
Never do that.
No, should be so much worse. Yeah, one of these streams.
An unprofessional would do.
Yeah. Hey, Case. Welcome back to D&D in Hindsight, where we are moving on to the expanded Psionics Handbook. I am Vincent.
If you had Psionics, you'd already know that I am the Krampus.
I'm Shiv.
I'm Hunter Grain.
And I'm Vincent. But you already knew that. Because psychic.
Are they psychic? Oh, God.
Exactly. Right, so starting at the beginning, this is another cover by Henry Higginbotham, which you can very much tell.
Yeah, the diorama posted from above, yeah.
Yeah. And very appropriate for what it is. Yeah. So Psionics appeared in D&D in the in a first edition D&D book, but got more fleshed out in second edition, starting with the complete Psionics Handbook that later got revised in the Dark Sun campaign setting, where Psionics is a major thing. And some of the races in this book actually originate from Dark Sun as well. This book itself is a 3.5 update to the and expansion to the 3.0 Psionics Handbook, and is probably one of the best mechanical books of this early era of 3.5 in general, and I quite adore it because it is kind of 3.5 at its best. So basically, Psionics itself is an alternate magic system and the entire thing was built fairly well to just fit together like a bunch of Lego bricks to let you build something without actually going so far, quite as far as magic does, in the sense that there's just objectively stupid powerful spells that break encounters. It only mostly hints at that, but it isn't quite as bad when it comes to the encounter breaking powers at the very least.
So I'm not going to lie, I have actually been looking forward to getting to this one because I have never actually read the psionic stuff. I only know this book by the aura it generates in a few different groups that I've been a part of. And the way people talk about, or the way people say the word psionics. Some people are like, psionics, and other people are like, psionics. But I've never actually read the book itself.
Yeah. That also kind of hints at the kind of split opinion on psionics itself in D&D, as some people like myself see it as it's another form of magic, man, or something along the lines of it. And D&D is a broad enough setting that you can have the mind mage. It's not really that big a deal. And others are like, psionics only, or other people are more of the philosophy that psionics only belongs in like sci-fi because it's very much a sci-fi thing, even though it's totally magic no matter how you look at it, basically.
One of the iconic D&D monsters is very big with the concept of mindfuckery. It absolutely has psionics.
Yes, it kind of has had that. Well, D&D itself is very much an amalgam setting of a bunch of fantasy and to some extent sci-fi stuff, including quite a bit of Cthulhu mythos that they...
Yes.
Yeah, which just kind of the authors liked and kind of mashed together. Sometimes an allegory, sometimes bluntly. But yes, the Mind Flayer is very much an iconic monster and is very much a psionic in nature.
Yep. Also, aren't beholders also psionic?
No, they're magic.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought they also had psionic stuff.
Yeah, the other, I would almost call this legitimate reason, but not really, that people could be mad at this book is kind of not really understanding the system itself on very well. Because if you look at it straightforwardly, if you're measuring magic by how well you can produce a blaster caster, Psionics is just better at producing a blaster caster straight out of the book. But as we've kind of gone over, that's a subpar option anyways, so this is not as big a deal as people kind of make it out to be. Mind you, when I say it's better at producing a blaster caster straight out of the book, I mean you're still going to do better with magic because magic cheats on certain fundamental levels when it comes to it gets more attention and material. Also, metamagic psionic rod or metamagic rods exist, and the equivalent does not exist for psionics. So there are certain tricks you can pull with just straight cash that you can't actually pull with psionics.
Yeah.
But in any case, getting into the book proper is the intro. So you may note that the book actually just has one author. And the fact that he actually got to revise the book is very much something he went over right here, because debuted there. It's been 3 years. They actually got feedback. He was actually able to act on the feedback, which is all kind of a nice thing to see in an early age where that is not very much of a thing at all. Communication between RPG authors and the audience is very slow and very long term for a large history of RPG design. This is the early 2000s where the internet is just barely burgeoning. So actually getting to revise your work in the same setting in a relevant thing is kind of actually kind of neat. There's also this line here, however. For instance, if anyone had lingering doubts that psionics were still weak compared to a wizard or sorcerer at all those doubts should now be dispelled. They are. But sorry, man.
Wrong.
You did a good job. Especially for the era of RPG design, you did a good job. You're still not equaling wizard or sorcerer because that stuff is busted. But you probably shouldn't aim to equal wizard or sorcerer.
Yeah, that shouldn't be your goal.
No. Alright, so getting on with it, let's start with the races chapter. This book is very much laid out like almost a mini version of the player's handbook, which makes sense because it is effectively emulating it just for a different set of classes. But yeah. So it has its own 8 races. Yeah, they actually put it. Yeah, it has its own 8 races. Here's the very basic overview, but going into them in more detail. Starting with the Dromites. They originate actually in this book. They're 3 foot tall, certainly not bugmen based on eusocial insects. As you can see, they stats are not amazing. Small. They get 3 points of natural armor and energy resistance of some kind. They have a power point, which makes them naturally psionic, which is more important for later chapters. To translate this from, we're not putting any text that tells you, this will do a d6 damage, and every other level they can spend power points in order to make it do a d6 more damage as a ranged touch attack of one element or another. It's not exactly an amazing attack. Especially since they only have 1 power point, so at most it's like, here's a ranged touch attack you can do once per day as 2d6 damage, unless you happen to be a psionic class. At which point, you probably have just picked up this power, and this once per day ability is pointless, or nearly pointless. Let's see. They get sent, which is neat. Not amazing, but neat. And, oh yeah, they have +1 level adjustment, because we refuse to give something natural armor and not give it a +1 level adjustment, I guess. It's not the highest on my list of things where you could just drop the level adjustment and it'd be fine, but you could drop the level adjustment, it'd be fine. It's not tiefling.
Make it suffer.
Here's Dwargar. Evil deep dwarves who love to toil and hate fun. Also not worth the level adjustment. There's no actual psionic invisibility, by the way. So this psi-like power is it's just the spell invisibility. They actually cover it later in the monster part. They have a monster section later in this book too. They cover it in that, where it is actually the invisibility spell proper. But yeah, this is literally taking the class from the monster manual and trading out all the magic except invisibility technically for psionics. Let's see, Ellen. Humans who have undergone a ritual by Ellens to turn them into Ellens, a psionically awakened race. This is pretty much the go-to Scion race and easily the best race in this book. So much so that it kind of actually competes with humans on and is outright better than humans if you're doing a psionic class. It has 3 major features. One is it's an aberration, which isn't as major a feature, I guess, but does let it dance around, charm, and dominate person. But more importantly, it has 2 reactions. One of which is it can just spend a power point as an immediate reaction to gain +4 racial bonus on saving throws until the beginning of its next turn.
Okay.
Which is just plain a good ability. And resilience, where it can spend an immediate action to reduce incoming damage by 2 points for every power point it spends. Which, if you're a psionic class, means you just spend an immediate action to negate a hit.
Yep.
Because you do have enough power points that and they scale more exponential than not, so they are going to actually outpace damage, and it is easily worth it as a reaction. They also technically spend a power point to not have to eat or drink. That is more of a fluffy ribbon thing, but yeah, just having these 2 fairly strong immediate actions is just built into the race, makes them more than worth it if you're doing a psionic class that isn't based around charisma, because they do get a -2 charisma. Also, if you're not doing a psionic class and actually want access to psionic feats, you would normally have to take a feat called Wild Talent. If you're a psionic race, basically any race that has power points, you don't have to do that. So it is the equivalent of having a bonus feat that you would normally get as a human if you were going to go that route. Early on in 3.5, that is kind of a more viable idea than it sounds, because there aren't really, at this point, there aren't really all that many great feats outside of the Psionics Handbook, and there are actual psionic feats that are worth contemplating. The Giths. They're in this book too, and they still kind of suck. You do get a decent amount of psi-like abilities as you get the Yankee, which is... And Psionic Dimension Door isn't actually bad, but yeah. It's still not worth it.
Special racial ability, don't touch my sword.
Yep. Alright, Half Giants. Dark Sun originating race. They are exactly what they say on the tin. They are the first race with powerful build, however, to appear. Which is kind of a favorite of ours. Basically, powerful build. Go ahead.
Let's use bigger weapons.
Yep. It lets you pretend to be one size larger than you actually are in all ways that are positive without actually getting any of the negatives of being bigger.
Yep, no hit penalty for being bigger, no hit bonus against you for being bigger. You just get to use, like, a large greatsword and do grapple checks against things that are larger, etc., etc.
Yeah. The only exception is you obviously only take up 1 space, and your reach is only 1 space away. Because in this edition, as things progress in size, they also gain a bigger threat area, which is important to remember, because leaving any threatened square provokes an attack of opportunity, meaning if something has a 10-foot reach, you have to, in order to get into melee with something as a medium-sized creature, you would have to actually provoke an attack of opportunity coming in.
Yep. Unless you tumble.
Yep.
Bless the tumble skill. By bless, I mean God fucking damn the tumble skill.
Tumble skill is a very useful skill.
Yep.
It is. It is a skill point sink for melee from my characters.
It is until it isn't.
Until it isn't, yes.
Yeah, you need to be able to, like, reliably do a 15.
Yeah.
So you have to understand, most of the campaigns I've played in generally don't go above level 8. It's a point sink for me.
$15.25 if you want to be able to move at full speed, but that's generally not something you have to worry about. It also has a Psy-like ability, Stomp. Don't worry about it. Let's see. 20-foot cone knocks things on the ground, does a d4, augments for a d4, does not increase its DC. This is basically just not good. It's the loose translation of that. But yeah. It's +1 level adjustment, which probably on balance is a bit too much, but it's not a deal breaker by any means. It's actually an interesting class because of powerful build mainly, but or not class, race because of powerful build mainly. And you could do worse in this book specifically. Let's see. Maynard, something like that. Tall humanoid race with sparkly skin and bits of living crystal jutting out from them are outwardly calm and restrained due to having to tame constant strong emotions. They're the race built to be wilder, or the wilder class, kind of. They're unimpressive but usable. Unfortunately, Wilder itself is kind of meh, but that's a different matter entirely. By kind of meh, it's still tier 2, because it's like a full manifester, but we'll get to them later. But yeah, again, they have Energy Ray, and again, it's not really good as a class feature, because either you're a Scion, and there's a very good chance you have Energy Ray anyways, at which point you're better off manifesting it, because it just doesn't really... It's not really worth it as a power. Which leaves really Outburst as their only other class feature. Well, okay, that's Psionics, but yeah. Which penalty to intelligence and wisdom, +2 bonus to strength. Which you activate as a standard action, because that doesn't actually say it's a free action. So that is kind of painful for a +1 to attack and damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 rounds, once per day. Yeah. Yeah, so their main class feature is not having a charisma penalty for the one charisma manifester class. All right, Threakreen. Yep, they originate from Dark Sun. They're hunters known as Mantis Warriors who view themselves as such. They respect those who live off the land, hate things that despoil it, like gnolls and orcs, and ignore the existence of non-hunters like farmers and city folk. They don't hate them or anything, they just don't care. Very much a monstrous race. Their most prominent feature is having 4 limbs, all of which have claws and a bite, but they were smart enough to restrict its natural weapons to 1 extra attack. So if you put armor spikes on these things, you're only getting like, I think you're only getting like the bite. You're not getting like 4 claws and a bite as secondary. But yeah. Other than that, the fact that they actually have 4 limbs is extremely amusing, because if you've ever wanted to just, like, I don't know, dual wield great swords or quad wield, you can totally do that with this race.
Wield a greatsword and a shield.
Yeah. The +2 level adjustment is a bit harsh, but the amount of amusement that comes with just having 4 limbs alone does kind of make it something you can sweep under the rug to some extent.
Yeah, you can do some fun stuff with it.
Yeah. They also have 2 racial hit dice.
Yeah.
Let's see. And finally, Zephs. Agile and fast race, known for their humor and the objects of subtle beauty they produce for trade. They are the textbook definition of okay.
I'd say I'm pretty sure they're the notable soul knife race.
They're they're kind of the notable Soul Knife race. You're probably also better off of them doing Wilder as well, but that's a different matter entirely. Yeah, so +1 bonus on saving throws versus power spells and spell-like abilities is
Nice.
Reasonable stat adjustment, like +2 dex, -2 strength. If you're not using strength, who cares? Burst is almost good, except not. Yeah, so 3 times per day, you get a speed boost. This is standard action. Speed boost goes all the way up to 30 feet, which is the equivalent of just double moving.
Yep.
In
It
addition,
lasts 3 rounds.
yeah. That being the
So if you need to move for the course of 3 rounds, you could speed boost on one of them, then run rounds 2 and 3. Although running would just get you 4 times movement anyway. So
yeah. Hey, if you want to make this,
you do it on the round before combat starts.
So if you want to make this and the mated more useful, just make those 2 racial abilities free actions. Mated still won't be good, but at least
Yep.
All right.
Really not breaking anything.
Nope. So on to the classes. And starting with the class of this book and the wizard analog of Psionics.
The Psion.
Yep. Right after this table, which I forgot was here. My notes only go over the stuff that I'm actually going to forget, so I shouldn't read ahead. Yeah, so PowerPoint's much like, or power is much, let me figure out what I'm saying. Much like magic, you get, for having a high stat in your psionic class, you get more power points, which is their equivalent of more spell slots, effectively. The math
have basically kind of seen this table already.
Yeah. The alternate roll for spell points in Unearthed Arcana is similar, but different at the same time. This one doesn't quite work on the same logic.
Calculation's different, but the concept's the same.
Yeah, the concept is the same. There is definitely more power points per level in general than there are actual spell points per level.
Which is fair. The spell points didn't have to actually spend points to boost their spells because they still worked on level.
Yeah. Yeah, which is the main difference. That and spells are also kind of more powerful than psionics in a lot of respects. Ignoring the part of the spell point system that was stupid where you had to boost up damage spells for no reason. And nothing else. But yeah. That thing I was talking about, the class of this book, the Psion. Wizard analog. It's an imp-based class. It gets both the Psion wilder list of powers to choose from, and they specialize in one of the 6 disciplines, which have their own mini spell list that we'll go over later in the actual powers section because that's its own kettle of fish. Unlike a wizard specialization, you don't forsake one of the disciplines in order to pick up another. They also refer to the specialists by their own individual little names for them. The bonus feats here, they can be psionic feats, meta-psionic feats, or psionic item creation feats. Yeah, they are very, very clearly built on pretty much a wizard chassis, but swipe out the word wizard with Psion and keep going.
Yeah, find replace wizard for Psion.
The only
magic for psychic.
Yeah, the only notable difference is they do not have familiar starting at first level, which makes the next section of the classes all the more strange because yeah. And here's the rules for psi crystals, which I will start with asking why is this here. So psi crystals are basically the familiars of psionics, except they're just accessible via a feat. They have other utilities through more feats as well, and there's a power that goes with them. So they are worth talking about on their own, but only in the context of all that stuff, because otherwise they pretty much act exactly like a familiar. It's like they give you an alert that says a bonus feat, and the term psi crystal is also fairly literal. They are not that big. They fit in like the palm of your hand, or I don't know, that pouch over here, so they don't get exploded by a fireball. They also have personality traits, which give you bonuses, including single-minded, and ignore the rest of this chart. Concentration checks are particularly important for Scions. Alright. Psychic Warrior. They're a 2/3 manifesting class whose main non-manifesting feature is bonus feats, which can be fighter feats or psionic feats, but not the meta-psionic or item creation ones. Not the item creation ones are all that important in 3.5, quite frankly. Their manifesting is wisdom based, which is good because it keeps them from being too mad, honestly, and wisdom has got this secondary utility of helping you not lose turns in combat from random nonsense spells. Unlike the half casters of Paladin and Ranger, but like Bard, they are also full level manifestors, and this matters a lot more than anything else for manifesting. With spells, you want to get access to higher level spells because the higher level spells are proportionately more powerful. Because of how manifesting works, everything scales just more with the amount of power points you're throwing in there. So not having access to like level 7, 8, or 9 powers is not actually much of a limiter, because most of your stuff just scales up anyways. The bigger limiter is they have the Psychic Warrior list, which is a different spell list, which is good and bad. There is some stuff on that is interesting, but for the most part, the Scion Wilder one is better, and they have less power points in general. On the other hand, they can also kind of hit things in melee, or at least are designed to hit things in melee. Yeah. The only thing that wears me out is they have like a D8 hit die.
Because they have a medium attack bonus, so you have a D8 hit die.
No, it wears me out because of the next class. Alright, the Soul Knife, the Rogue class. It has a D10 hit die.
Yep.
I don't know why it has a D10 hit die.
Because that's a medium attack bonus. There's a D10 hit die.
Actually, more specifically, I just don't know why the Psychic Warrior has a D8 hit die. Alright. Also, one of these things is not like the other. I mean, flavor-wise, this fits in the book. If I rename this the Magic Knife, I could throw it in Complete Adventure and no one would bat an eye. This class is only psychically tied because they called it a Mind Knife, and they called it a Soul Knife and mildly flavored around the idea of psionics. But it has no actual like psionic powers or anything.
Their class block is either...
No, they don't use power points.
Its class block is either wrong or this class is terrible.
This class is terrible, but that's a different matter entirely. But what are you referring to?
Look, it doesn't get third or second iterative attack until 20.
Okay, that is wrong. Iterative attack. Yeah, no, that part is actually
should be when it gets the 11 attack bonus.
Yeah, it should be at 15. Yeah, that's just a printing error. That's a fundamental rule of the game, and it's not tied to classes, thankfully.
Nope, tied to class. Hold on. It doesn't get it. It knows what it did.
They're already punishing themselves enough by being a Soul Knife in this edition. But for form's sake, to go over what they do, class is mainly about its Mind Knife, a free weapon with a limited list of okay properties it can have. And that's it. Okay, they can imbue the knife for more damage to one of its attacks as a move action. They get weapon focus and greater weapon focus with it. They get quick draw and whirlwind attack with it. It can be a bastard sword, or it can be 2 short swords. By default, it's a short sword, basically. The only positive here is when dual wielding, they only lose like a +1 enhancement bonus. Also, they can throw it once per round until they get to 17, in which case they can actually make full round attacks with throwing, because you need to really lock that off until 17 for
Too powerful otherwise.
Yeah, they're not a skill class. They're subpar martial, and they do nothing that a fighter couldn't do with its bonus feats, except for Knife to the Soul, which is a great name, but but sucks. You give up Psychic Strike damage to deal mental stat damage at the rate of 1 per die, and you can see Psychic Strike scales up to like 5, so like at 19 you could do like 5 points of stat damage, which is okay, I guess. Though they are strangely good Gestalt for martial in a way, seeing as they actually have good reflex and will saves, and come with their own free magic item, which becomes a lot more interesting when you're actually doing a martial. Especially if you're trying to do something more over fair with Gestalt and not go complete bloody nuts. Alright, and finally, Wilder! Okay, so just be a Scion if you want to be a Mindcaster. But what this does have to offer, but it does offer something a bit mediocre but different. So, comparing it to Scion for a second, you'll see Scion has the same amount of power points, crappier base attack bonus. I think they both have good will save. This has a D6 instead of a D4 die, and Scion gets, let's see, starts at 3 powers known, ends up at 36 powers known, and the Wilder starts at 1 power known, ends up with 11. They get an aggressively small amount of powers that they get to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little bit less than a third known powers, and they also don't have any direct access to discipline lists. Everyone gets indirect access to psionic powers as well. We'll go over that later. Now, the positive thing is a medium attack bonus is not insignificant, especially for something that can make range touch. There are powers that make range touch attacks, for example, or you can actually try and do like a pseudo spell melee psionic power melee build, something akin to Psychic Warrior, only with more power points. And I'm really lingering on this stuff because the class features are the worst part of this class. So, the main mechanic they have is Wild Surge, which lets you manifest above your level and even gives you extra power points for doing so. So, at level 1, you could manifest a power as if or you could manifest a power as if you were level 2, and it gives you a free power point, so you don't have to spend the extra power point for it.
Okay.
And then there's Psychic Enervation. So, for every extra point you go above your level, you have a 5% chance of becoming dazed until your next turn and losing power points equal to your level. This only increases as you go up in level in this class. So if you are adding 4 levels, you have a 20% chance of losing the rest of your current turn and your next turn.
Right.
Yeah. So this is great if whatever action you're doing is going to end the fight, and painful otherwise. Let's see. The other features they get to add charisma to touch attacks to a max of their normal AC because we have to make this unnecessarily confusing. And they can make telepaths pay more to manifest powers on them, a feature that will never come up in any campaign ever because this will involve the DM really wanting to run psionic enemies. I should note, Scion also gets bonus feats.
The one time it works.
Yeah, the one time it works, they'll pay like 2 extra power points. Let's see, yeah, here, they pay 2 extra power points, and a full manifester has like 72 plus whatever their stat is giving them, which is not going to be an insignificant amount. Even in context, it's just not good. Oh yeah, the one other feature they get is Surging Euphoria. So for a number of rounds, so when they actually do use Wild Surge and they get a bonus to their attack and damage rolls. I believe it was attack and damage rolls. Yeah, attack, damage rolls, and saving throws for a number of rounds equal the intensity of their wild surge. One of which they have have a chance of being stunned for, but that's a different matter entirely. Or not stunned, dazed for. But yeah, you can make something out of this class, and it being a full level manifester with full power points it's just going to be strong by its nature. And it is also charisma based, so if you want to actually make a charisma caster, because you want to, I don't know, have charisma skills for reasons.
Party needs a face.
Yeah. Party needs a face?
Yeah, party needs a face.
Did they not give the... Party needs a face that can bluff and intimidate. Diplomacy is not a class skill.
The party needs a face.
Yeah. So, anyways. But yeah, a full level manifester, much like a full level caster, is going to be powerful just by the nature of it has a lot of resources, even if they are very restricted on their power choice.
Mhm.
All right. And finally, there's the epic section or the epic section in this area. And yep, this is epic stuff. All right, let's move on. We'll talk about epic more whenever we do the epic level handbook, which is a 3.0 book, so we're not going to do it for a very long time.
I was going to say, wasn't that a 3.0 book?
Yep. All right. So, like a lot of these books, it has skills, though there is actually a new skill here, which is auto-hypnosis, which quite literally does things. It is very ribbony, and I don't know if any of these have ever come up when I've played a psionic, but they are things. Yeah, so you can ignore a caltrop wound, you can memorize stuff, which is legitimately useful. Resist dying, which I believe is yeah, lets you stabilize fairly easily. Gives you a second saving throw versus fear the next round.
Ooh, yay.
Yeah. Sorry. Second saving throw versus fear, except it's an auto hypnosis check. Let's see. I'm actually surprised that didn't come up. Am I missing something here?
Oh.
Yeah, no, if you fail saving throw, you can make an auto hypnosis check on your next round, even while overcome by fear. Oh no, because fear checks are always will saves. And
Yes.
yeah. Second. You have goodwill, you have goodwill. I never ran a psychic warrior, you have goodwill. Okay. That might be why that never came up. And yeah, can act while disabled without actually losing hit points. And concentration, which is normally one of these sections where, hey, here's more stuff you can do with this skill, and yeah, okay, I guess, whatever. In this case, however, it's actually a lot more important. So psionics very much works like magic when it comes to manifesting in combat and everything, so all that stuff is there, as well as if you take damage while trying to manifest, you have to try and hold the power or lose it. Then there's also this extra action called Gain Psionic Focus, which is really important. So... Yeah. So, merely... Yeah. Anyone who has power points can gain a psionic focus by making a DC... As a full round action, making a DC 20 concentration check. At which point, you have your psionic focus. That's it. You have your psionic focus. There are things that will let you expend your psionic focus, and there are things that will only work while you have your psionic focus. There's nothing that can make you lose it inherently. So even if you're not good at concentration checks, you can just take a 20 out of combat to become psionically focused, and you're just psionically focused until you spend it. Or if you just never spend it, you just stay psionically focused, period. This matters entirely for feats. And I think maybe one of the features in a prestige class, but nothing in the base classes cares about psionic focus. Speaking of feats. Yep, there are a lot of feats in this book. So go over things. The psionic feats, the meta-psionic feats, and the the ad creation ones actually say you have to have a manifestor level. All of them you have to have, or you have to be either have PowerPoints or take this feat called Wild Talent, or be one of the manifestor classes. Any of those three will let you take psionic feats. So gaining the feats proper, we are going to start with one of my favorite sections. Why is this here?
Oh, yeah.
So, none of these feats have anything to do with psionics. None of these feats are referenced by any of the prestige classes. Mind over body at least sounds on theme and open-minded.
Yeah.
Maybe rapid metabolism if I'm really stretching. Why the fuck is Greater Many Shot here?
Those need to be better.
Sure, bros need to be better. I don't object to this. I don't object to this feat, but existing. But yeah, there's just a head.
Where else would we put it?
Complete warrior.
No. That's crazy.
Also, here's deadly precision. Don't actually take this feat. It is kind of a trap. Yeah, so it lets you reroll ones on your sneak attacks extra damage dice. That sounds good on paper, but then when you do the math, it basically adds up to less than half a point of damage per die. Which, I guess at a high enough level might be okay for a feat if you have nothing else, but there has to be something else you can take as a feat. Oh, you might just be better at gaining +2 to will, or might just be better off gaining +2 to will saves. Or something. But yeah. On to psionic feats proper. As said, there's Wild Talent. If you're not one of the psionic races, but want to actually have access to psionic powers, you just take Wild Talent. Or one of the psionic classes. Psionic classes will give you access as well. Which basically gives you 2 power points and the ability to take these feats. And some of the more core feats, like Psychic Meditation here, which, yeah, you know that concentration check to become focused that takes a full round action normally? Now you can move to a move action. Narrow Mind, in case you're not good enough at doing DC 20 concentration checks as an R+4 to help become psionically focused. And I shove this power that appears later in the book here for reference, where you can spend a swift action and 3 power points to gain an extra move action. Become psionically focused. Or whatever the fuck else you want. Now, what can you do if they're psionic focus? That's a thing. That's where we get into, like, these feats, for example. Like, Psionic Fist, Psionic Weapon, and Psionic Shot, which the first level is spend your focus and get 2d6. And then second level increases it by another 2d6. So, spend your focus and get, like, 4d6. So, it's an extra 4d6 damage every round if you just want to spend, like, 3 power points as a Psionic Warrior. This is a lot more than you'll get out of feats early in this edition from... It's like 3 feats in order to do this, mind you, but this is still a lot more damage you're going to get out of any of the feats, or any of the non-psionic feats this early in the edition. Probably still competes with stuff later in the edition. Not necessarily something you can easily do as a non-psionic, but as a psionic, it's fairly straightforward. As long as you can basically pass that concentration check.
Yep.
Let's see. Other things. Psionic Body, a hit point increasing feat that isn't completely shit, because you get 2 for each psionic feat you have, including this one, and wherever you get a new one, it's a 2 extra hit points, so it's a nice HP buffer, basically. Especially for Psychic Warrior, who can take a lot of psionic feats. Psionic Dodge, which is dodge, but, you know, or is it extra +1 AC, except it's not versus one thing, it's just you have it. This is one of the feats that are you must be psionically focused. This is actually it's not a great feat, but it's a decent filler feat, and it is just straight up a +1 AC. And if you're not expending your psionic focus, that's not a clause, really.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sidestep charge, which is just actually not bad. It's +4 dodge bonus against charge attacks. If the charge fails to make an attack against you, you get an immediate attack of opportunity. That's it. It's just a solid feat. You, especially as a frontline character, you will be charged by enemies. I can guarantee you that. That very much happens in this edition. And speed of thought, as long as you're focused, not wearing heavy armor, just 10 feet of movement. Again, if you're not doing any of the stuff that involves expending your psionic focus, it's just a better whatever that feat was that gave 5 feet of movement.
Oh, the quick foot or whatever it was.
Yeah. Let's see. And yeah, the Psi Crystal feats I was talking about earlier. Psi Crystal Affinity just gives you the Psi Crystal. Psi Crystal Containment, you can spend a full round action focusing your Psi Crystal anytime. So this gives you an extra psionic focus to expend. And the much more important thing you can do is solicit Psi Crystal. So a lot of the more powerful spells for crowd control and such tend to take concentration. Like Dominate, the psionic version, takes concentration, which basically means it takes your standard action every round to keep dominating a thing. Solicit Psi Crystal lets your Psi Crystal do all the concentrating for powers instead of yourself.
Yep.
Let's see. Other unique things. Power penetration works very differently than spell penetration does. It's like twice the bonus, because it's basically a +4 and a +8. I believe this is just typed out terribly. Yes, this is typed out terribly. Or no, this bonus stacks with power penetration. Yeah, okay. So, in comparison, I believe spell penetration is a +2 and a +4. However, you have to expend your psionic focus. This is less of an issue for a manifester if they actually... Again, they badly want to take psychic meditation as a manifester. They are going to be spending their psionic focus all over the place generally in order to get their powers to work. But yeah, as far as just getting through spell/power resistance, this is pretty much a must-have, but you are very good at it once per round. You suck at it more than once per round. Psionic Endowment. Yep. Yeah. Same with the ones that increase DC. They also have... so spellcasters have spell focus, which is pick a spell school and it's just +1 DC, and then greater spell focus, which is +2. For manifestors, they don't have to pick a discipline. It's for anything, but they have to expend their focus, which also means they can't expend their focus on power penetration. And this is kind of like this is the beginnings of the inherent balance built into the system. Sometimes they just have to choose which thing they get. Because if they spend it on either of these ones, as a spoiler for the next page, Metapsionic feats also require you to expend your psionic focus. So you can't use any of those either.
Getting your focus back is a common thing.
Yeah. Getting your focus back is a common thing, and the focus itself is a limiter on stacking a bunch of feats in order to make your spell or your powers go through. Another feat that is practically a key feature of Psionics itself is the Expanded Knowledge feat. You need a Manifestor level 3, and you get to pick one power to become a new power known that is any level up to 1 lower than what you can manifest. From any list. Not just your own. Including the discipline lists.
Yeah.
So just as a feat, you can go out and get things that are usually not available to your class. Unfortunately, Wilder gets like no bonus feats, so... and being the class that's probably the most desperate for more powers. Let's see. Oh yeah, and then finally Overchannel, which is what if you wanted to actually do what Wilder does, but better? And as a feat. So while manifesting, you can also increase your effective manifestor level. You do have to pay the extra power points. The clause is you do a d8 points of damage to yourself per level you increase it by, and that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that this is not much of a clause. Actually, it's a D8, 3D8, and then 5D8. But when you're doing 3D8, you're also 8th level, and when you're doing 5D8, you're 15.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is easily worth it. And you don't have a 5, 10, 15% chance of taking your next turn off. And yeah, the meta-psionic feats, as said, you have to expend your psionic focus in order to use these, which means you cannot stack them with each other. You cannot maximize and quicken, for example. The positive is they cost extra power points instead of increasing spell level, which means they do actually cheat a little generally, because they're going to cost the same amount in extra power points that you normally need to spend in spell slots. But okay, so every spell slot is the equivalent of two extra power points, so they are actually about half. They do cost half as much.
Yeah.
The other balance here, however, is there is a strict amount of power points you can spend on anything, and this includes with meta psionics. You can't spend more than your level in power points, basically. So I can maximize this, but I'm going to basically lose 4 power points I can otherwise spend on the power. So if I maximize a blast spell of some sort, it will basically do 4 less. Every power point you spend on any of the damage spells is generally going to give you an extra die of damage. Yeah. So if you're spending 4 points on maximizing it, that's 4 less dice of damage you're going to have for that power. It should also be noted that Quicken, even though we actually have swift actions, does not call out itself as a swift action anywhere. It actually doesn't call itself out as any type of action. Sometimes these books are dedicated to giving me a headache. Let's see. Other things. Split Psionic Ray is kind of a neat one. Twin Power is interesting in the sense that we haven't actually had Twin Spell yet. It does exactly what you think it does. You cast the spell again, basically.
Yep.
And Unconditional Power, which is interesting but probably not worth the feat, but unless your DM really hates players being allowed to take turns. As it costs an extra 8, and it lets you manifest a spell. Lets you manifest a power, even if you couldn't normally. So if you're dazed, confused, nauseated, shaken, stunned, dead, probably not that last one.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure that last one is no.
Let's not get in the debate of whether or not you can do things while you're dead.
There has been sometimes a lack of rules for what you can or can't do while dead.
Or can I transfer the unconscious status from a corpse to myself or to other people? What happens if I transfer the unconscious property from a corpse to someone else?
Yeah,
etc., etc.
All right, now the psionics section where I get to save a lot of breath because by saying this first sentence, psionics is mostly like magic. As stated, it's still you manifest powers instead of casting spells, but it's the same idea. It provokes attacks of opportunity when you try and do it in melee. You can be disrupted if things hit you. You need to make concentration checks to not be disrupted. So the only things we really need to go over are the differences. Starting with the disciplines, and this is probably one of the. Starting with psionic magic transparency, which I've been dancing around a little bit, anyways. Then we'll go into disciplines. But yeah, basically, not only is psionics very much like magic with like words changed out. Whenever anything refers to one, it is still basically referring to the other. Anything with power resistance has effectively spell resistance. Anything with spell resistance has power resistance. They work the exact same way. If you're detecting magic, you're detecting psionics, and vice versa. This is a great rule in the sense that it keeps the game from being too fractional and stupid.
Yeah. Also, no, we don't have to go back and revise every monster that already exists
Yep.
just to make psionics work.
Yeah. Also, psionics doesn't get around everything with spell resistance, and your power resistance is not useless.
Yeah.
Because again, it is very unlikely the DM is going to throw all that much at you that actually has psionics. Especially since he has basically the monster manual section in this book for psionic stuff and whatever he wants to spend his free time making himself. But yeah, psionics is divided up into 6 disciplines. There's clairsentience, which is the equivalent of divination. Pretty much almost specifically. Metacreativity, which is the equivalent of conjuration, though that's a little bit looser. It basically creates stuff by pulling parts of the astral plane into the real world and shaping it into things. Psionics does not really do the straight up summoning of other creatures from the outer planes or anything like that. It is the main flavor difference between psionics, as magic reaches for power beyond and from around and beyond. Psionics is power from within manifesting from without, and or just so. How this actually translates just depends on what you're actually trying to make as a power, or just how the author sees it. But pulling stuff from the astral plane in order to create things kind of blurs this line a little.
Yeah.
Let's see. But not overly so that it like completely ruins the they're not still like summoning angels from from the upper planes or something.
Yeah. They can make astral constructs. They can't,
Yeah. It's still
summon servants of gods, etc., etc.
Yeah. It's still stuff being shaped with their mind. It's just being created from ectoplasm that is over there. Don't worry about it. Psychokinesis is evocation. Pretty straight up. Psychometabolism, art of affecting bodies, is transmutation very loosely. It's the equivalent of transmutation for purposes of magic psionic transparency. As you can pretty much tell by the name psychometabolism, not really very much the case there. It is the power. It is the power about affecting the body and modifying it. It's also where the healing powers are actually in.
Mm-hmm.
None of which I think I pulled aside because the healing powers aren't exactly amazing, and almost always only apply to the Scion themselves. They'll usually pick up like 1 or 2 because it's a good way of self-healing, but it's not like, especially a Scion who has like a good amount of powers, so they can use slots on healing, and it's not a bad thing for a psychic warrior in general, just as an emergency heal in combat. But healing very much pales in comparison to what a cleric can do. And let's see, telepathy, which is again the loose equivalent of the School of Enchantment, but flavor-wise, it does feel a bit different. Spell-wise, it actually feels almost exactly the same, strangely enough, for telepathy and enchantment. Because stuff like charm and dominate, while it is very much a different concept of here's your behavior being affected magically versus I am just straight up shoving my will into your mind and making you do things, that stuff mechanically comes out about the same.
Yeah.
And finally, psychoportation. The ability to move through space and time. It has no magic equivalent. And it has the teleportation subschool in magic, or in psionics. So, strangely enough, this is one of the few things that Psionics actually has more of than Magic does. Because psychoportation is kind of a weird collective school of all the teleport stuff and the occasional time thing, and it actually has a few of its own unique powers. I'm going to use unique with quotation marks here, because when I mean unique powers, it's like here's a damage or here's a damage power that's in psychoportation. But it's still more developed than teleportation is in Magic, which has, I think, like two or three spells. It's not a very big sub school, nor does it really need to be.
Yeah.
All right, display. So instead of having different components that Magic has, which is verbal, semantic, etc., Psionics has displays. Which you can just straight up suppress with a concentration check that is 15 plus the level of power. If you're able to automatically psionically focus, which happens somewhere around mid-level, you're also able to completely suppress all displays if you really want to on any of the powers you manifest. This doesn't actually matter. You still provoke attacks of opportunity. Displays are purely flavorful, by the way. Or nearly purely flavorful. There's some minor things, like auditory here. Someone within 15 feet can hear you. Let's see. Hardly noticeable is shout strength enough to be... okay, can grow, but yeah. Okay, yeah, both of those are an option. You can either make it loud or not, your choice. But yeah, various little things like that. But yeah, the displays are primarily for flavor. You can also smell like whatever you want to smell like.
Strawberry.
Ultimate power. Scent control.
Yep.
I prefer the display of that South Park joke about the fake psychics where everyone just holds their fingers up to their head and goes, no, 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 cha, cha, cha. Go, 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 go.
That was such a great episode.
All right. Manifesting time, which I only bring up because this is the first book where we have both swift and immediate actions. So swift actions are an extra action you can take on your turn. You only get one swift action on your turn. Immediate actions are the same as swift actions, except they can be taken off your turn. If you take an immediate action, you cannot take a swift action on your next turn. This will pop up in later books, and it almost always makes the magic spells in those books more interesting, and occasionally feats. Let's see, power points, as we've kind of alluded to as well. All powers cost power points to manifest. Their baseline cost is dependent on their power level. So a power level, something that is level 1 costs 1 point, 2, 3. This is exactly the same as the spell point system, basically, where it just goes up 2. This also corresponds directly to what level the manifester is at the time, unless they're a psychic warrior. Don't worry about that part too much. But this
Psychic warrior.
Yep. But this still works the same way for psychic warrior. So a level 2 power will have a base of 3. Their powers will also have augments, which will basically read as, hey, if you spend for every extra power point you spend, you can do X, or for every extra power point you spend, you can do Y. So it's like you can increase the dice by a D6, or for every 2 power points, it increases the DC by 1. Stuff like that. You are limited by your manifestor level for how many power points you can spend on anything. They will also sometimes have EXP costs, which basically translates to I will almost never actually take and or manifest this power.
Yep.
One other thing about powers. Unlike magic, there is no retraining out of powers. Whatever you take, you are stuck with by the rules of this book. Let's see. However, there are also rules for adding new kind if you want to spend experience on it. Obviously, you gain powers as you go up in levels. You can do independent research. Any kind of manifestor can create a new power. Let's see. 200 EXP per week, takes 1 week per level of power. There are a lot of level 1 powers that are actually worth it, so spending 200 EXP on a week to gain a power is probably one of the best ways for a Wilder to expand their power repertoire and actually be able to do more than a thing. On the other hand, you also have to pass a Psycraft check. Psycraft, by the way, is the psychic equivalent of Spellcraft.
Yep.
And depending on how you interpret the transparency rule, is exactly Spellcraft or not. Don't worry about it too much. You can also manifest an unknown power from another character's powers. This almost never happens because it involves 2 people in a party running psionic characters. But if that actually happens, there are rules for it. Let's see. Special abilities, psi-like powers. So a psi-like power you manifest at whatever the minimum cost is for that power. You can still augment it. I believe they don't require EXP cost. Yeah, they're more or less like spell-like abilities. Except you have to actually still pay, or you do have to pay power points in order to augment them higher, even if you do have a higher manifestor level. So, Energy Ray, for example, which is the range attack that does a d6, even if you're a high enough level, what was that phrase? High enough level Dromite in order to be a manifestor level of 3, you would still have to pay 2 extra power points to get the 2 extra dice. Let's see. And also there's a variant where Psionics is different, also known as, no. Just no. It is an idea, but for every reason we...
No.
Yeah, just no. For every reason we stated that transparency was a good idea, this is a bad idea, basically.
Yep.
And just general advice on psionic campaigns if, I don't know, you really want to focus on psionics in your campaign. Alright, on to the powers proper.
Oh.
Yep.
Had to happen eventually.
Yep. Right, so here's the entire Psion Wilder list. As noted, it is very front-loaded. Partially because they don't have to have, like, cure light wounds, cure medium wounds, cure insignificant wounds, etc., etc. They don't have those, but just as an example. Mainly because everything augments, you don't actually have to just keep recreating the same power over and over again, only slightly higher level, with slightly better effect.
There's the fun of that. Also,
Video
something we
game.
figured out in 5th edition.
Huh?
Yep.
Yes. Also, yes. 5th edition. 5th edition fixed that pretty well by just. Thanks to them actually doing scaling with spell slot and DC based on character level instead of the other way around.
Yep.
But yeah. As for just a decent overview of psionic powers, Crystal Shard, here's a decent, just no power resistance. Such attack does a d6 piercing damage, and for every point you spend, it's an RD6. Or Dispaying Touch for a melee touch attack. This is one of the funny psychoportation ones, where you just disperse your opponents literally by teleporting pieces of them away.
That's
I wish I had no bones. Done.
This is typeless damage, which is very much a rarity in D&D, because nothing resists it. Also, yeah, Psychoportation has the funniest damage abilities just because of the very concept of what it's doing. Okay, so Energy Ray is here's a great example of exactly how energy, or the damage powers basically work or the elemental damage powers work for Psionics. Energy Ray itself is a ranged touch attack. It starts as a d6, but you also choose one of 4 elements: cold, electricity, fire, or sonic. Cold and fire just add a point of damage per die you're doing. Electricity, for the touch attacks, it is +3 bonus to your attack roll if they're wearing metal armor, and it is always a +2 to manifestor levels checks for purposes of overcoming it. And Sonic is -1 point of damage per die, but ignores hardness. Also, nothing resists Sonic except for Slads, who are immune to it.
Yep.
So Sonic tends to get around resistances and immunities, which means, of course, that you still basically want to hit things with fire or cold if they're resistant to fire or cold, because the flat bonus you're getting on fire or cold is going to overwhelm their... like, they take 10 points less, but I'm also doing 2 points more per die, so...
Yeah.
But by the time something has a resistance of, like, 10, you're basically able to throw 10... Or you're throwing 10 dice on this. This is a 20-point difference. You just don't care. You're blowing through their through their 10 points of resistance and still doing a good amount of damage. The area effect spells, like Energy Bolt, which, yeah, the Lightning Bolt equivalent is just straight up a level 3 spell. Similar idea. Except cold will make it it will also make it a fortitude save. Electricity, obviously the bonus to hit wouldn't matter, so it's a +2 bonus on the spell's DC. Fire is just straight damage, and Sonic is the same. Let's see. And there's more creative ones. Here's Energy Stun, where you lose 2 dice of damage. But if they fail their save, they must succeed at a will save or be stunned. This is a 5-foot radius burst on you. Let's see. Oh yes, that was the funny part of Energy Stun. This is a great power if you don't read the errata. Let's see. Yeah, so the other thing about powers is generally for every 2 points you spend, the DC increases by 1. Or sometimes they write it for every point you spend, you spend on the power, the DC increases by 1.
Clearly not intended.
No, I'm fairly certain. I don't remember whether I've looked up the errata for this or not, but yeah, that's a problem. And finally, you may have noticed that these 4 elements don't include acid. For whatever reason, acid is actually very hard for Psionics to manifest as, I think, a flavor thing, because it's not really a big deal. But the 2 main acid attacks are the well-named but terrible Exaltation of the Black Dragon and Breath of the Black Dragon, which is just a single target ray and a cone that do subpar amounts of damage. And okay, so Exaltation does subpar amounts of damage. It doesn't scale well in comparison to Energy Ray. And Breath of the Black Dragons, the damage is fine, but the DC does not scale up with the dice. And neither of these are worth taking as powers because you just have the energy equivalents generally. Or if you're a Psychic Warrior, you have Dissipating Touch. Which I just find funny. Now on to the actual discipline lists, I believe. No, not yet. There's more stuff that I could fit on that page, that's right. So yeah, this more or less gives you an idea of the damage spells. CC is a bit more limited than you actually find with magic. You don't have... There is no psionic web.
Unfortunate.
So generally at low levels, you'll get, like, things that will hit one target. Entangling Ectoplasm was actually a standout. Mostly because it was, let's see, ranged touch attack, and if they're hit, they're just covered in goo that entangles them. For 5 rounds. So it is just straight up you're entangled for 5 rounds. There's a size limitation, but you can augment for higher sizes, and this will generally keep up with whatever you're casting at. I put up entangled up here. They're not entangled to a spot, so they can still move, but it is like -2 attacks, -4 penalty to dex, so -2 to AC. If they attempt to cast a spell, they might lose it, which is not insignificant for spellcasters either. It's a reasonable debuff for like the one power point is going to cost 90% of the time. It doesn't allow power resistance either. You will absolutely hit a dragon with this.
Yeah.
Psionic Grease. Grease is a decent spell in the first place. Psionic Grease is exactly like that. You will find a lot of spells that are, or you'll find a lot of powers that are like this, by the way. It will say Grease, Psionic, and it will be 90% the same. It will literally tell you to look at the player's handbook. Mental Disruption here. 10-foot radius spread is centered on you. All creatures you designate within the area must make a will save or be dazed. So you can either augment up the DC or augment up the range. So it's a point blank. This is actually one of the ones that is actually better on a Wilder. The other thing I didn't go over with Wilder is Scions have have only proficiency with simple weapons. They don't have proficiency with armor. Armor does not affect psionics in any way. But armor check penalties being what they are, you generally don't want to wear armor as a scion unless you actually gain armor proficiency somehow. Wilders actually have light armor and shield proficiency. So they tend to have a decent AC. They have a D6 hit dice. Them getting closer into melee, while not the greatest thing for manifester, same as it's not the greatest thing for a caster, is a bit more viable. So powers like this one actually make for halfway decent CC. There's Psionic Blast, which is like easily the best of the CCs I found running through here. It's a 30-foot shaped cone. Anything in this is stunned for, or anything in this that fails a will save is just stunned for a round. For every 2 power points you spend, duration of the stun increases by a round. DC doesn't go up, but it's a big enough AoE that you're going to catch some things with a 30-foot cone, generally, in some situations. Let's see. Yes. And on to the action economic spells, or the things that are highly action economic, basically the immediate action defensive spells, which is something that this is one of the major things that powers do that you don't generally get from Magic. There aren't too many reactive spells that defend you. There is it very much, Magic is very much a game of rocket tag of you versus the DM for who can cast the most broken spell first sometimes. Unless you've both decided to tone it the hell back, which is generally advised. Psionics actually has a decent amount of just random defensive stuff, like Empty Mind here. Immediate action, will save every 2 points you spend, or bonus to will save every 2 points you spend. It goes up by 1. Also of note, and of major complaint to me, is the phrase, you can manifest this power instantly, quick enough to gain its benefit in an emergency. Manifesting this power is an immediate action. Like manifesting quicken power, it counts towards the normal limit of 1 quicken power per round. You can use this power even when it is not your turn. Appears on every goddamn spell that has like an immediate action as a...
They want you to know.
It's like Yu-Gi-Oh cards where like 12 of them have the same ability, but because there's no keywords or anything, they have to keep printing it on the card.
What's dumb is there's a keyword right there, literally in the freaking manifesting die.
Yeah,
they made the keyword and it's there.
Is manifesting time similar to boomerang time?
Yes. But yeah, other things it can do. Energy adaptation, which is exactly or practically like the spell of the same name, is one of the few things that actually just scales with level. This goes from 10 to 20 to 30 just on manifester level without actually having to spend points. The only thing you spend points on is making an immediate action. And then there's the much more important energy adaptation specified, which for some reason I shoved way over here. So energy adaptation does all 5 of the energy types, all 5 of the energy types at the same time. Specified is it just does one of the energy types, but it's way the fuck cheaper. Which means that just at 7th level, if you get hit by at 7th level or higher, you could spend 7 power points as an immediate action to take 10, 20, or 30 points less from any type of energy attack. This is a 2nd level power. Let's see. Dimension Door Psionic, which is exactly like Dimension Door, except you can also spend 6 extra power points and just manifest as a move action. Hustle we've gone over, but bears repeating, because it's just a really good power.
Do the hustle.
Yep. Mental Barrier, immediate action, +4 deflection bonus to AC, can augment it for a higher deflection bonus, or for it to actually just stay around for more than 1 round. After a while, you will have a Ring of Deflection, which will give a deflection bonus that won't stack with this, but this is a low enough level that it might be contemplatable. And or if you're just being cheap and don't want to buy a Ring of Deflection, it's also a viable option.
Yeah.
And there's Temporal Acceleration, which is the psionic equivalent of Time Stop, except it comes at level 6. And is also the another important spell to talk about for a bit. So, a Swift Action Manifest, it costs 11 power points because it's level 6 power. I don't know why I'm saying this part. But yeah, it freezes time. You get an entire round all to yourself to do whatever you want, except you can't affect anything but yourself. But there are a lot of psionic powers that are just buffs. So, if you want to, as a swift action, spend an extra 11 power points in order to put one of your buffs up, perfectly viable. Especially if you're something like as a Scion, this is not as important because I don't care what combat buffs you do. You have the stats of a wizard. You're not going to wade into melee. But other things you can do is summon an Astral Construct. This is usually a full round action, and it still is. But it doesn't matter if which means that you would normally have an entire round before it have to come into play, and if you get hit, you have to make concentration. You have to make concentration checks, or just straight up shows up, or other little things like that. The other thing it does is it augments for every 4 points. It gets an additional round. Time Stop is level 8 normally, and does like a D3 rounds.
D4 plus 1, I want to say.
D4 plus 1, yeah, I think so. Did we ever go over Time Stop when we were doing the handbook or the player's handbook?
I don't think so.
God, that's an oh no, it's level 9. Yeah, it is just outright
level
level 9. D4 plus 1. Yeah. So it has a longer duration as a base, and I think let's see, 11, 15, 9. At most you get 3 rounds out of this, which is a little bit below average for Time Stop, but this starts at level 6. Time Stop is probably of even more use to a spellcaster, but again, they can't even do it until level 17, whereas this is a level 11 power. And finally, Evade Burst, which is you straight up manifest evasion for yourself. This is also one of the funnier ones, because sometimes the levels for the Scion Wilder list and the Psychic Warrior list are not the same. So you remember that feat earlier that let you just take a power from any list? So if you are a Scion Wilder and for whatever reason want Evade Burst, you can take it from the Psychic Warrior list, and it will cost 8 power points less to manifest.
Yep.
Yeah. This is actually fairly useful for them in the sense that I don't know if it's worth the feat per se, but for 5 points you get evasion as an immediate action basically, and for an extra 4 points you get improved evasion. Thus, for 9 points, they can basically just take half damage from an AoE attack.
Yeah.
Let's see. As for all that stuff you can actually do during a time stop, decent amount of actual buffs exist throughout Psionics as they do through Magic, but Scions are probably a little bit better at playing with action economics. Let's see. Inertial Armor, this is their equivalent of Mage Armor, except they can actually augment it for more AC. And lasts an hour per level, so after a while you manifest this once, and it lasts for the entire day, which is it's an alternative to buying what effectively Braces of Armor, which was the go-to for getting an AC bonus as a mage. Force Screen. Just, again, a quick shield bonus. The precognitive line. Yeah, so precognitive defense, which is insight bonus to AC and saving throws, but also can be a swift action if you pay a lot of points, but you can also augment it for bigger bonuses. Vigor line, which is actually probably one of the better oh shit I'm about to die powers, because every power point you spend is just 5 temporary HP.
Yep.
Offense, it's the attack roll one. Prescience is the weird one, because it's the damage roll one. It starts at a +2, but only increases by 1 per point, so it's very weird. Skate, which is funny. So skate increases your land speed, sort of. Its bonus goes up when you're going uphill, but down when you're going downhill. The more important part is you can manifest it on an object, and it treats it as only 1/10 of the weight. Which can actually be useful and or funny. Let's see.
Energy, having fun with it.
Yep. Energy conversion, energy adaptation, but you also get to shoot rays based on whatever you absorb. True metabolism. Yeah. Now, long manifesting time on that one, and fairly expensive, but you just straight up heal 10 points per round for a minute. And can just regrow stuff. There are also a lot of... It's also kind of a stand-in for... There are a lot of powers that are just like, you could regrow limbs, or, again, you can gain HP back, etc. But they're always manifest on yourself only. There are very few powers that can actually be... There are very few psychometabolism powers that affect others. Let's see. Yes. And now the psychic powers that are also spells. Yep, so they have knock, so rogues continue to feel bad.
Not wrong, but goddamn.
Yep. Levitate, which is just their level 2. Okay, I don't feel like climbing anymore power. Psionic Tongues exists. Dispel magic. Just trust me, it's the same. It also augments to effectively be greater dispel magic. And here is Incarnate, which is their equivalent of permanency, except I think permanency, it was expensive components, and this one is straight up just XP.
I think permanency also requires XP.
Let's check. Oh yeah, permanency does require XP. So yeah.
Yep.
It is nowhere near as good as permanency, because the list is nowhere near as good as what permanency gives you.
Well, yes. It's psychic abilities or psionics as opposed to magic.
Yeah.
A lot smaller list.
It's a lot smaller list, and it doesn't have, I think, most of the... Let's see, you got... yeah, even just looking at the... Yeah, it's not even like... Yeah, there's not Expand, which is their equivalent of Enlarged Person, for example. Pretty much none of the pretty much none of the self-buff stuff, so you basically got vision powers, and that's about the best you're going to get there. And Contingency is Psionic. Which has an XP cost, technically. The XP is 15.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like... Okay, I guess that costs you XP, but unless you're really using this a lot, also lasts like a day per level. So... It is yet an... Contingency is... Both the magic and psionic versions are great ways of getting around action economics. I don't think we described it in magic, but the idea is basically the same for both. Okay, yeah. The magic version doesn't cost any XP, it just has an expensive focus, but that's just a one-time cost of 1,500 gold. But yeah, the idea is you make your spell go off on some contingency or another that you set. Usually this contingency is something like, I don't know, snapping your fingers, or other things that are basically free actions.
Yep. Either things that are basic free actions, or things that are like, if I get dropped to 0 hit points, if I fall unconscious, teleport me.
Yep. Let's see. All right. On to the discipline powers. As I said, they're very much mini spell lists. This is the egoist spell list of power list of psychometabolism. There's not usually an amazingly a large amount of these that are even that good. You're taking them for like one power or another. Let's see. Yeah. The main thing with the egoist list is, well, metamorphosis. Yeah. Being the equivalent of transmutation, it is the one that lets you basically transform into things. It's more limited in ways than until you get to at least metamorphosis greater than the transmutation school. However, as from what I remember, the transmutation school is you just straight up become that thing.
Yep.
This one you gain only certain things when you metamorphosize. Yeah, same creature type, your normal form. Hit dice up to 15. You gain a strength, dex, and con. Use your own mental scores. You gain its extraordinary special attacks, but you don't gain any of its special qualities or any of its supernatural, psionic, or spell-like abilities. You retain all of yours of that type, however. So there's also the feat Metamorphic Transfer, which is pretty much only if you're an egoist you'll actually or have decided to expand psionics and take or expanded knowledge and take metamorphosis. But yeah. I have never run anything with metamorphosis, and I don't. I would be interested in. I'd almost be interested in someone's experience doing so. As you can see by this giant wall of text, this is an ask of just the player to do this. Because you aren't just like shoving the stat block in front of you and more or less using it verbatim. There are actual modifiers back and forth, and if you have metamorphic transfer, you actually get one of its abilities usable 3 times a day, and you can see where this can become basically its own sub character you make just for this one fucking spell. It can also transform objects. Or sorry, transform you into objects, and it lasts a very long time when you do this. The other amusing thing on this one is, well, okay, fusion's amusing, it's just not good. The other amusing thing that actually is good is fission, where you can literally duplicate yourself.
Okay.
And its capstone is Metamorphosis Greater, which does cost 200 every time you manifest it, but, okay, that is the one where you could just take the monster manual entry and put it straight in front of you and not really worry about it. Also, the hit dice cap is, twice your manifester level up to 50. Now, granted, there's magic equivalents for both of these that are about the same, I think.
Yeah. There's regular polymorph and shape change.
Yeah. I think shape change has very little limits, if anything.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Kineticist, the blasty guy. Pretty much, with the exception of Lightning Bolt, most of the AoEs actually are on this list. It should be noted, Energy Ball, which is the equivalent of Fireball, is actually level 4 power, which is probably appropriate. Fireball is usually considered one of the better AoE shapes, just because it's here's a 20-foot radius, put it wherever, range is long as well. Let's see. Other things they have, Energy Current, which, let's see. Oh yeah, this one's a concentration ability. Yeah, so you choose you choose an energy type when you manifest it, deals 96. Notably, this does not... Oh no, it does have the modifiers there. Yeah. Arsenal's primary target strikes a couple additional targets. As long as you're concentrating on it, it keeps doing that. This is just full straight spell damage of 1 die per power point you spend, except it lasts up to a round per level and it keeps going. Dice and DC scale normally. So it is just straight up kind of a pseudo chain lightning that just kind of keeps going off every round. Just a fairly solid damage spell in general, as long as you can keep concentration up. Which is an ass, because like if you're shooting fucking lightning, if you're shooting like lightning or cold bolts or what the fuck ever off every round, somebody's going to come up and punch you.
Nah.
Nah. Why would they do that? That doesn't sound right.
Let's see. Teleportation Sphere Psionic, which is the equivalent of this spell, which certainly does things. Don't worry about it. Or Telekinetic Sphere Psionic. And finally, their capstone and the equivalent of Meteor Swarm is Tornado Blast. It is not as good as Meteor Swarm, but it's still funny. You literally just straight up throw wind at someone. It has no element, so it is just doing straight damage. The base damage is 8d6 for a touch attack. Then after that touch attack, regardless of whether they saved or not, it's a 40-foot radius AoE that does 17d6. Reflex save for half. And then tosses everything about because it's a fucking tornado. Augments for more damage as usual. Each 2d6 increases the DC by 1. It is not as good as Meteor Swarm, but it is amusing in its own right.
Yep.
Nomad, the Psychoportation one. Has a few... let's see. Has Burst, which increases speed. This is actually where Fly Psionic is. You cannot... yeah, unless you're a Nomad or you pick it up once you actually can manifest 5th level powers, you cannot actually fly as a Psion. This is very much what the discipline lists do. Is it actually tends to quarantine off some of the more iconic things that would normally be on spell lists, which is an interesting limitation. The straight up teleport spells are also Nomad spells. Teleportation Trigger, which is actually both interesting and good. Yeah, you know that contingency to just teleport? Yeah, this is just a 5th level power that kind of does that. Yeah.
I see you've crossed a power off there.
I don't know what you're talking about. It's certainly not on the next slide. Oh, yes.
Horrifically disruptive, annoying to deal with power that your DM should slap you if you try and use.
What are you talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why have you...
Okay,
Why have you tied pillows to your face before this combat? No reason.
So before we go over that, there's also Baleful Teleport, which is
forcibly teleport someone.
Forcibly teleport someone. Well, only parts of them. This one's actually a much better one in the sense it is a fortitude save to one target, but it does manifesting it also increases its level for overcoming power resistance, so it actually has penetration, which is a nice little extra feature to tie onto it, to not just make it a Nerve Blasty spell type of thing.
Oh.
Alright, so now going over that thing I certainly crossed off. Alright, time regression. Let's just read this verbatim for a second. You regress the apparent time 1 round into the past. Do I need to go any further than this? Has anyone here played an RPG and tried to remember what happened 1 round previous?
I was gonna say, oh, fuck you.
Hey, Fire Emblem let you do it.
Yep, undoes the effects of everyone's actions.
Okay, so that's a video game which keeps track of this stuff.
Yeah,
we are normal humans.
Video game and real people, yeah.
Furthermore, this is D&D 3.5, which has so many moving bits and random numbers and math that just no. If you have
I feel like the immediate thing is the player tells the DM, hey, you should jot down what happens. And the DM's immediate response is, you're no longer playing in my campaign. Get the fuck out of my house.
It has an XP cost and it's not high enough for the amount of annoyance the spell does.
As much as we're bitching about it, the spell has a great filter of the player himself looks at it and doesn't take the power. Because even if you had, well, one, it's a level 9 power, so how often are you even playing high enough to take this power? And you actually have to be a Nomad, specifically. You cannot get this with expanded knowledge because it's a level 9 power. And then you have to look at this power and go, why am I taking this over, let me go back a bit. Anything on that level 9 power list.
Because those aren't horrifically disruptive.
Yeah, that's the power someone picks if they hate their DM.
Because
And
I'm
themselves.
causing problems on purpose, Vince.
Yeah, because that's pretty much the only
I'm
reason
the
you're doing
problem.
this. But yeah, this gets vetoed by almost all players, even if they have the opportunity to take it. It's also a very...
Pick something viable, or I could be an asshole.
You also have to actually be a nomad, which... most people are taking kineticist, if I'm going to be completely honest. It's kineticist or the telepathy one. Those are really the ones that are just the most entertaining. As amusing as Baleful Teleport is. Alright, so, moving on to Seer. The Clairsentience one. Main features of this one, stuff like precognition and precognition greater, especially greater, where it is you cast a spell and sometime later on a check you just get an insight bonus on a d20 roll. Which is not bad. Precognition is actually fairly good while going through a dungeon because it's like 10 minutes per level, and it costs a power point. Keeping this up out of combat is not hard.
Yeah.
Greater is even more convenient because an hour per level basically means you cast it at the start of the day and you're going... You just basically have that as a flat ability. Let's see. Other things you get from this list, straight up here's a reroll whenever you expend it at some... Again, a standard action. This one's a little bit more of a pain because a round per level is not a very long time, but it is just a straight up reroll. Fate of One is just what probably a second chance should have been, is just immediate action, I believe, reroll. Yeah, just straight up immediate action reroll. And Reality Revision is on their list for some reason. Let's see. Yes, Fate Link, where you can make it so, hey, these two, whatever happens to one also happens to the other. The only flaw being is they both basically have to fail the save, but if they don't have great will saves, this can be a way of like kind of multiplying damage out on fodder. And yeah, Reality Revision, which is literally the psionic equivalent of Wish, and is not actually a, well, it's a Clairsentience power. It's not actually a, just on their discipline list. It is also just a straight up Psion Wilder power. I don't know why it's here either. And their actual capstone ability, or their capstone power, meta faculty. You elevate your mind a near universal consciousness. Yes. So it being the kind of equivalent, or it being the divination equivalent, obviously, this is the most divination spell they actually have, and it is also... Generally, divination is basically turning yourself into a DM plot device, give or take. This one is kind of... It's not really an exception so much as it just goes so hard in that direction to basically try to not screw the player over as much as possible with it. That it is actually kind of impressive. It's also a capstone power that costs you 1,000 experience, so... It's kind of an okay, fine here.
And then the DM screws you over anyways. That's what you get.
Yeah, probably. I was just impressed at exactly how hard it goes into trying to make this worth it as much as possible. To the point where it actually just can defeat spells, powers, and special abilities such as Screen or Mind Blight, all the usual stuff, or even a Wish spell. It also helps the fact that the information is limited enough that it's probably not going to break anything, but you are still basically acting as a plot device for the DM, quite frankly. Let's see. Shaper, who I only put 1 power on here for good reason, because it just takes up that goddamn much space. So Astral Construct, which is the only summoning ability in all of Psionics, and is not actually summoning, you're literally creating an Astral Construct. But the idea is for every 2 points of power you spend, it goes up by a level, so there's first, second, etc. level Astral Constructs. They are basically kind of a pseudo make-your-own monster. They will have
a bunch of menus.
Yep, they have a bunch of menus. Basically, like a first level Astral Concept, you have 1 choice from menu A. Same with the second level. I believe third level is you either get 1 choice for menu A or 2 choices from menu B. I don't think I put it on here. Every menu has the ability to take 2. Oh no, here, right here. Can choose 2 special abilities for menu A. Yeah, so even as you go up, as you open menus, you can take 2 choices from the menu below it, which itself lets you take 2 choices from the menu below it, so you can just have a lot of menu A powers or for some reason on it. But they're all little things like here's extra attack or stuff like that. It is a build your own summon.
Yep.
Which is a good way to do it and not have it be horribly broken, because none of the build your own elements are spell-like abilities. And they still come up to being relatively decent in combat. The only issue is the same issue it actually shares with the summon spells, in the sense that there's no limit or concentration or anything for these for the Astral Construct, so you can summon as many as you have power points for and flood the board. But yeah, just don't. Yeah, we want to have 1 or maybe 2 in an emergency situation, fine. If you're doing nothing in combat but summoning Astral Constructs, you kind of become the problem. Also, there's a feat I didn't go over earlier, which is Boost Astral Construct, which just gives you another menu choice, so you just get that many more options with them. If you... Yeah. Also of note, since this is a level 1 power, anyone can just take Expanded Knowledge and get this at level 3. So if you want to do summoning in Psionics, you don't really have to be a Shaper. The reasons for being Shaper aren't very strong, to be honest, unless you like all of the powers that let you just create random things. Just fabricate and all that stuff. Which, if you do, good on you. But yeah, nothing here is terribly impressive otherwise, or particularly special. At least until you get to level 9, you get the funny stuff like Genesis and True Creation. Because, you want to create your own demiplane.
Yeah.
And finally, Telepath. This is where you get... Just a second. Okay. Telepath, which, again, gets... It's the strangeness of it gets the enchantment stuff and is the enchantment equivalent, but flavor-wise it feels different, but at the same time mechanically is about the same, and that actually feels right at the same time. But yeah, it has stuff like Psionic Suggestion, Psionic Charm, Psionic Dominate, with the notable things of this isn't Charm or Dominate person. It is a Charm and Dominate person, except it augments to be able to just affect different creature types. And every 2 points you spend on any of the augmentations increases the DC. Which is kind of funny in the sense that sometimes you will just straight up be augmenting it for no other reason than increasing the DC, even if your target is a human. Especially the Dominate one. Other things notable on this one is Empathic Transfer Hostile. Which I will also point out is on the Psychic Warrior list, which lets you transfer, 50 hit points as a base. They can save for half. This is a level 3 power. For every point you spend, it's an additional 10. 6 power points, you affect all creatures within a 20-foot radius spread centered on you. So if you need some healing, you could just do this. It is a touch in melee range. And again, it's a level 3 telepath power. It's not a bad one if you're trying to do a more melee-focused Wilder, and it's just straight a very good power for Psychic Warrior, who are meant to slog into melee. at least as designed, are meant to slog into melee. There's nothing that stops them from grabbing a bow and shooting things, but
Yeah.
Their powers aren't really built around that per se, but you can still find things to do if you want to use a bow. And finally, the other really good power of Telepath is Schism, where you manifest more actions for yourself every round, because you just manifest a second mind that can do purely mental things, like, you know, manifesting powers. Now, its manifester level is 6 levels below yours, but that's still like another power, or that's still another power every round that sometimes the cheap powers are good.
The power round, here's another thing that can get your focus back.
Yeah. Yeah, because focus is also a purely mental action. But yeah, Telepath is just one of the stronger disciplines, and one of the more amusing ones, because stuff like Schism, Dominate is always a fun spell, honestly. Empathic Transfer Hostile is really effective, and also kind of funny. Not really a situation you want to be in with a Psion as much, because a Psion is made of paper mache, much like a wizard, so... But it is a great way of getting rid of basically all of the damage you've taken. Let's see. And there's this ability, which I put here partially because I just kept cutting around it. And it has this giant art right here of Meta Concert.
Link your mind together.
Yeah, so you and up to 9 other willing psychic creatures in range. So this is basically a ritual to create a thing, a meta concert, which is just a thing with power points from all of you that can manifest its own powers, and is all really very much a DM tool disguised as a power, because this was never going to happen or be useful as a player character. Even assuming that there's 2 or more psychic people, this still is not really anything you would want to do as players, but is actually kind of like an interesting little element you could hypothetically add to a psychic dungeon. This is stuff I would generally say throw in a different section, but it's fine here, I guess. It's not really any better way of doing this. And is just kind of like an amusing little thing you could have for, like, I don't know, cultists of some sort of like evil mental deity of some sort or another. And on to Psychic Warrior, who has their own list, does not have some of the more traditional, like, arcane stuff. Like, it doesn't have, I don't think it has inertial armor, so... Oh, no, it has inertial armor. It's actually kind of good for them now that I think about it, if they just don't want to wear armor for whatever reason. But yeah, they don't have stuff like Energy Ray or anything. Stuff they do, however, have, and is of note, one, they have Hustle. It is just straight up on their list, so they don't even need to expanded knowledge. Which is nice, but it does have competition, oddly enough. So the big problem that Psychic Warrior actually has is a good chunk of their list is composed of this stuff that gives them natural attacks, like Bite of the Wolf and Claws of the Beast. And Bite of the Wolf is okay. It is an extra natural attack, so whatever. It's not amazing. It's not really worth manifesting because not usually worth manifesting because here's a standard action. It will last for the combat and maybe into the next one, but it's very meh for increasing damage. Then there's Claws of the Beast, which is a complete waste. It's swift action to manifest, an hour per level is great. You could basically have it going all day, but augmentation increases its damage, the claw damage, but it doesn't actually give it like an enhancement bonus or anything like that. So you're stuck being a monk, except you have 2 claw attacks, and that's it. You don't get rid of attacks. You're not dual wielding or anything with them. And there's this stupid clause here that if you attack with a manufactured weapon or another natural attack, you can't make claws attacks in that round. So if you manifest Bite of the Wolf, you cannot use your claws with the bite. So even if you're trying to stay within this system, they kind of kneecap you. Let alone fun things like using armor spikes and just doing the claws as secondary attacks, which you can't do either. So it's overly precautious for no reason. Now, in the complete opposite direction is Psionic Lion's Charge. Hey, you know that pounce thing that we've been trying to get on a fighter for fucking ever and figure out it's
3 power points.
Yep. Swift action, 3 power points. When you charge, just make all your attacks. Furthermore, you can augment it, and for every point you spend, it's just an extra point of damage on all those attacks.
Yeah.
This is one of the best melee tools in the game at this point. Like, it is both I get to full round when I charge, and I get to add a bunch of damage. And it's on Psychic Warrior, unfortunately. Which is actually its biggest problem. Because Psychic Warrior is otherwise kind of meh. It is a very lesser fighter otherwise, except for the fact that it's not because it has manifesting, obviously, but like it does not have a full attack bonus, and it does get enough feats to do stuff like dual wield, but it's you're very much trying to make it work. Let's see. Other things that they get include expansion, which is enlarge person, except also augments to just be bigger sizes. Or they can spend 6 power points to make it a swift action, which is just plain nice. Or wait, yeah, 6 power points to make it a swift action. Or they can spend 2 additional power points to make its duration 1 minute per level, then 1 round per level. Did I mention that this book does not have very good proofreading?
Yeah.
They didn't pay me for the reading.
Well, you know. Dimensional slide. Yet another way to actually, yeah. So, close range teleport. Notable in the sense that you can augment it for 4, so at 9th level you can just do this as a move action. Just teleport anywhere in close range. Again, they get hustle. And a related note, every time you cast hustle, you are obligated to play hustle.
Do the hustle. Do 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 do.
Let's see. Psycho feedback, which is as much hilarious as anything else. So you can boost one of your physical stats by up to your manifester level. By decreasing one of your mental, I believe it was, select one ability score you'd like to boost and increase by the same amount that you decrease. Yeah, so just the sheer amount you can do at a certain point, because of this one you could basically give yourself 9 strength at the cost of, I don't know, 9 intelligence or charisma, or split between the two. It is a standard action that lasts around per level, which is not usually good, but the fact that it is just such a large number and grows just grows by manifester level without even having to pay for it can be funny. Up until the point where something like causes, like, I don't know, charisma or intelligence damage, and you just fall over flat because you've burnt off all of your mental stats, but nonetheless.
Yeah, but it's funny.
Yep. And Form of Doom. Which is just a giant-ass self-buff. Which I wish was better, but is at least halfway decent. Let's see, you got a Frightful Presence when you charge. If there's somehow things with lower hit dice than you in a combat, you can scare them a little. More importantly, you gain a +4 natural armor. This will stack with any magic items you have, because those are enhancement bonuses of natural armor, not actual natural armor. DR5, +4 strength. Move additional 10 feet, climb. Oh yeah, you get a bunch of tentacle attacks, which is actually the good part of this. Yep. You get 4 additional tentacle attacks.
I can fulfill all my dreams. Wait, what?
Yes, you could terrify Japanese schoolgirls everywhere.
I mean, I do that naturally, but
Yeah.
No tentacles needed.
Be less of a creeper about it. Alright, on to the prestige classes. And, well, starting with a very simple one, the Cerebromancer. It's an arcane manifester. That's it. Nothing wrong with this. It's exactly like the other hybrid caster classes. Let's see. Next is the Elocator. Melee-oriented prestige class whose main feature is actually decent, main feature is actually decent, but not amazing. Opportunistic strike there. It's an insight bonus to attack and damage rolls, which doesn't stack with power buffs because it's an insight bonus, and all of the precognitive, etc. powers are insights. To the first attack you make against a target that was damaged immediately by someone else since your last turn. Basically, if you're attacking something else that someone else is attacking, you get a once per round bonus on your first attack versus them. It's okay. You lose some manifesting levels. That's not as painful as it sounds to manifestors because they, again, a lot of powers are more front, or good powers are more front loaded and just scale with manifestor level. The bigger issue is if you're trying to use anything offensive, you still have to overcome power resistance, and that can be, or spell resistance really, and that can be painful. But it's not as big a penalty to lose manifestor level as it is to lose spell casting level. And or if you're doing Psychic Warrior, everything you're doing is like a self buff anyways. It's like you're going to lose a few points of damage off Psionic Lion's charge. Who cares? You're still pouncing when you attack. That said, yeah, the class features aren't exactly that amazing. Fist of Zukon. Monk's Prestige class that gains Psychic Warrior powers. A Monk Prestige class that can gain pounds, by the way, is what I just said.
my
Unfortunately, it's still Monk.
It's still Monk. Now, it scales unarmed damage, AC, and speed, but it does not scale Flurry of Blows, is the other flaw here. And yes, it's still Monk. Let's not go crazy. Though it does notably use Wisdom for manifesting and not, I don't know, fucking Charisma or something.
Intelligence for manifesting.
But yeah, you can do a lot worse if you're a monk looking to grab a prestige class. The only painful part is it not scaling Flurry of Blows because everything else is basically fine. Illithid Slayer. Anti-Illithid Manifester has a full attack bonus and Mind Flayer oriented class features that occasionally overlap with being useful versus anything else. Yeah, like their melee attacks reduce power resistance by transparency rules that will also reduce spell resistance, so that's not insignificant. Stuff like that, basically. And various immunities to
Stuff.
Yeah, stuff. It's meant to do what it says on the tin. It only loses like one manifestor level, and it does have a full attack bonus, so like if I'm kind of ignoring all of these class features, that alone can almost be worth it for a Psychic Warrior to go into in a weird way. Just because their class itself doesn't have a full attack bonus. Let's see. Metamind. Lose a lot of manifesting there, gain free manifesting that's worth less than the power points you just lost, and the ability to store a small amount of power points in your Psy Crystal. So the only good thing here is actually the capstone, which is once per day for a minute. You just have infinite power points.
Okay.
Yeah, you can manifest powers without spending power points, which is cute, but you lost like 5 levels of manifesting off of that, so it's like, eh. Let's see. Scion Uncarnate. Congratulations, you're giving up manifestor levels in order to turn yourself incorporeal. That's
I can be invisible.
I had to read that just to make sure you were pronouncing that correct.
Yeah, no,
Uncarnate sounds wrong.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Uncart
like-
does sell wrong, but if it was in-cart instead, it would just make me sad.
Yeah. We'll get to that later.
It's a ways away, I'm pretty sure.
It is. Let's see. Pyrokineticist. Again, another one of these that's... I don't know what you would change the name to make it non-psionic, but... yeah, there's nothing here that specifically screams this needs to be in this book, per se, other than the name. In any case, it adds fire damage to its melee attacks, defenses against fire, once per day, a once per day buff, unlimited oh, yes. So the funny thing about this class is it has an unlimited use save or die effect.
Right.
Also, a once per day fire damage burst. It's not a good class, but it is funny. Yeah, so Heat Death here, you can spend your Psionic Focus as a full round action. They have to make a not exactly amazingly difficult save of DC 14 plus your Charisma bonus on something that's probably going to be mostly focused on melee or die. If they pass, they take 48 fire damage, which is cute, which is not anything great. But it's still very funny. Can't really even do that every round because you have to spend a full round action and use your psionic focus. So unless you're manifesting like hustle every round or something, you
Every time.
Yep.
Just in the background. I wish I had a button that did it like at like 10% volume while you were talking.
Yep. All right, Thrall Herd gives up a level of manifesting for a more powerful leadership feat with a higher level limit. This is literally the leadership feat. This is literally the template for the leadership feat. There's no penalty to anything dying, unlike the leadership feat. You can't have both, by the way. You can only have either Thrall Herd or the leadership feat. Your limit for the level of your Thrall is only 1 below yours instead of 2 below yours. And if they die, you just get a new one just comes along. Don't worry about it. Considering you only give up like 1 level of manifesting, and again, giving up levels of manifesting is nowhere near as painful as giving up levels of spellcasting, it's actually fairly solid. Technically, you'll give up a second one for Twofold Master, and that might actually be worth it because it just gives you a second Thrall. That's at -2 instead of -1, but that's fine. Have you ever wanted to run 3 characters at the table?
No.
Ish.
Yeah, that'd be the other. That'd be the actual issue.
DMs continually won't let me have a comic relief character. I can make Lion-O. I want to take Snarf too. Snarf, Snarf.
Well, you just don't have Snarf be a combat character.
Yep. All right, Warmind. Full base attack bonus class that also manifests psychic warrior powers. Goes up to level 5 powers as well. Gains 3 times per day free action buffs, which aren't bad. Like minor DR, ability to make each of its attacks hit 2 adjacent squares if they haven't moved more than 10 feet. Once per day free action bonus that does 10d6 extra damage on the attack as a capstone. Making that one class that once per day got to do, what was it, 3d6 extra on an attack. Just cry. Like that's how you do a once per day ability. Sort of. It's not a bad one to actually go into if you're like a fighter, especially a fighter looking for like a pounce, because again, just full attack bonus, and once this hits level 4, it can manifest Psionic Lion's Charge.
Yeah.
Or Hustle. Yeah. The only catch here is somehow figuring out how to get 8 ranks of knowledge psionics on a fighter.
Ben, 8 of your 2 points per level.
Like I said,
and you take, I don't know, something that makes their class skill for you somehow.
Let's go with that one. I don't remember if that's a thing in 3.5. It's a lot easier in Pathfinder because you just have a background that would do it, or trait that would do it, rather. But yeah. But yeah, just not a bad prestige class on its own. Mainly because they gave it abilities that were actually useful. Go fucking figure. Alright, magic items.
No, those are psionic items. Very different.
No.
Not.
Yeah, not at all. Also magic... no. Magic psionic transparency. These are magic items. One is the other. Yep. Just going over the basic stuff. It has more properties for armors and shields. Some of note. Let's see. A porter, standard action, armor, shield, Yep. Like, it's 40k, so it's a bit expensive to add to it, but standard action that just lets you Dimension Door is not a bad thing for a fighter to have, especially just to get out of combat. And it's an even better thing to add to an NPC if you're trying to buff up the value of his horde in the rare chance that player characters can actually kill him, because he now has the ability to Dimension Door. Without having to actually be a caster or manifester. Quickness, +1 bonus that just adds 5 feet of movement, which is not bad at all. Range, which is here because it's amusing as shit, because this is a shield property and it does exactly what you think it is. And wall, which is also a very amusing property to just put on a random ass shield, because hey, do you want just a wall to block off, I don't know, a hallway or something that you can just manifest out of nowhere? It's a later level thing, but it's not a bad one to carry around. Weapons, you get more useful. There's more useful stuff for weapons. Collision, while it's a +2 bonus, it's just a straight 5 damage with no types attached to it. Which can be more useful than the elemental types, especially if you're fighting like outsiders a lot. Lucky, it's a +1 bonus that is just straight up a reroll on attack roll a day. Parrying, which adds to your AC. And again, just costs 8k. Sorry, AC and saving throws. It is an insight bonus, so it doesn't stack with powers, but if you're not actually manifesting powers for 8k, that's not bad. Let's see. What was this one? Will by a psychic creature. Oh yeah, Psychic, which is you spend 35k and just as your PowerPoint reserve goes up, the enhancement bonus goes up. It's going to take a Psychic Warrior quite a while to get the +5, but if you're like a melee wilder, this is a good property at a certain point, because you're just straight up going to have a +5 enhancement bonus fairly quickly. Like, this isn't even halfway through their levels that they'll have 130. Psychokinetic, similarly, it's a +1 for a D4 extra. It's akin to Sonic, where it's like it does less damage, but there's no actual element to it, so nothing resists it. Specific weapons. Hey, here's this Githyanki silver sword that I happened to find.
Hey!
Put it back.
And to go over the
Where's my sword?
Yeah, and to go over this stuff real quick. Cognizized crystal, it stores PP, it can be recharged. PowerPoints. Get your mind out of the
Anyways.
Doors, those are wands. Power Stone, those are scrolls. Psy Crowns, those are staves. Psychic Tattoos, those are potions. Okay. Now, as for universal items, crystal masks were kind of interesting. More specifically, let's see. Here's one that is a +4 bonus on insight checks, just for wearing it. +4 bonus on +4 competence bonus on intimidate checks. Yeah, this is where you start getting the magic items that are just straight up giant ass bonuses to skills. Making anything that involves a skill check, like, I don't know, the sensei's hey, make concentration checks in order to manifest this ability of my prestige class, just so much more easier, or so much easier, because I believe down here there's also these third eyes, which does a similar thing, and here's just a straight up +10 competence bonus on concentration checks, and this thing just costs 10k. If you're making a manifester of a significantly high enough level for that to not be much of a cost, this is practically a mandatory piece of equipment. This doesn't even take up, I believe, no, these take up eyewear, and there's not a terribly large amount of eyewear. Other things, Glove of Titan's Grip was amusing because it's just straight up +8 enhancement bonus on grapple checks. I don't think there's terribly much that actually adds enhancement bonus to grapple checks otherwise. Let's see, Psionics, bonus to DCs when... the Psionics, which is just straight up bonus to DCs with one discipline or another. There's this, which I put here because that picture abuses me. So that's a psychoreactive skin, which is its own unique slot. You can actually have multiple of them on, but only one of them works at a time. And yeah, they just kind of look like stuff like that. they go over the entirety of your skin and just give you abilities. Again, that's more there because it just amuses me. Other than that, let's see, there are psionic artifacts as well, and cursed items, and nothing of terrible note, but get there for just the psionic item section very much duplicates the magic item section, give or take. It has all of its own unique stuff because there's no point in, like, they don't need to print the exact same magic properties as psionic properties as already existed, because that would be pointless. And let's see, there's the special material, crystal. You can have crystal weapons.
Crystal.
Yep.
And mundane crystal, huh?
Yep. Mundane crystal is you want your weapons to be crystal because why not? Sure. Deep crystals are notably fairly good for a Scion, especially a Psychic Warrior, or maybe a Wilder that wants to go into combat. Free action that doesn't provoke an attack opportunity. You can channel Psionic power into a melee or ranged weapon made of deep crystal for 2 points. For 2 points, you deal 2d6 extra damage. It will stay charged for a minute until it hits, and that's it. You can just do this. It just costs you 1,000 more to make your weapon out of crystal. There's not really any great reason for somebody who has a significant power point reserve and wants to hit things with melee or ranged weapons to not just straight make their make every weapon they can out of deep crystal, because that's just plain good. 2 power points for 2 extra d6 the next time you hit something. My only gripe is, did you have to also make the supply to bows? Terribly, it's like, if you want to pull out a psychic enemy, they already kind of exist in the monster manual, but there's a few unique ones here, and if you want to pull out something crazy for inspiration, yeah, sure, that's in this section. Let's see. First, blues. They're psychic goblins. And like goblins, they have a shitty stat line because reasons.
The goblins.
Yeah, so subpar stats, naturally psionic, +1 level adjustment. Shiv, am I missing something as to why this has +1 level adjustment?
Well, you see, it
It knows Common and Goblin? I...
clearly because it's a blue. We just hate blues.
Apparently. Okay, so more so than everything else I'm saying this with, if you want to drop the level adjustment on this, without the level adjustment...
Ignore this strictly probably worse than player handbook class or race. Throw a level adjustment on it. Blues know what they did.
Look, sometimes there's trap options. We've been over this.
There's trap options, and then there's just like, you didn't even cover this with leaves. I can see the spikes.
Clearly, 60-foot dark vision and a base 30-foot speed, too powerful.
Like a dwarf?
Shut up.
I didn't put all of them here, but all of the classes that were printed originally in this book also have a monster manual section that have all of these things as characters printed in it.
Oh.
For reasons. I can understand, like, okay, here's a basic stat block for, like, your average everyday Dromite or something, but at the same time, you don't really need this.
As characters, refer to our race section.
Yep. Okay, this is an intellect devourer. It is a gigantic brain. It's not actually that big.
It's an animated. It's really big. The size of a regular brain.
Yeah.
It's an animated brain with limbs. Elephants. I need to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that gives you an idea of what Psycrystal's size is. Like, again, these are the Psychic Familiar, or the Psion... Well, these are the Psionics Familiar equivalent, and yeah, they can't actually grow limbs and move around. Or you can just shove them in a, a pouch and not really worry about it. Let's see. The Unbodied. Here's a here's a template for the Unbodied. Who wants to run AV? Who wants to run an incorporeal brain?
Very important to have challenge.
Me, gigantic brain.
Let's see, it has 4 racial hit dice, plus 4 level adjustment.
You know what? I'd run it for no reason.
There's the joke.
Yep. Sure does. Has a melee touch attack that does a d6 damage.
Yeah.
I guess.
Deflection bonus equal to charisma, because yeah, sure, why not? Has a positive con. That's some tough brain.
Yeah. Tough brain.
And yeah, you want a revision. So for anything that's already appeared in the monster manual, they don't literally reprint everything. It's just basically, here's what it has instead of what it here's the psi-like ability it has instead of the spell-like abilities it has. Yeah. Here it now has power resistance. That literally changes nothing. And monsters ranked by challenge in here. Just literally this entire section just ranked by challenge rating. And the appendix. Here's some spells. Mostly stuff that just messes with PowerPoints and such. Nothing terribly impressive or interesting, but like sometimes it will be like, hey, we do some PowerPoint burn or some shit, or a little bit of other things like that. These are spells that no one will ever take for pretty obvious reasons, because they are really narrow. Also the mind domain for the 2 new deities that appear in the, on the next on my next slide.
Look, these spells are very important if you're doing the manifestor caster.
No, they're not even important if you're doing
class, I
that.
guess.
No, they're not. Yeah, Dwemer of Transference lets you convert spellcasting into psychic power. It was also terrible. Yeah, so you're the ones that are actually meant
let you
for that.
steal PowerPoints.
Yeah. Let you steal PowerPoints from the player character who ran a psych or a Scion.
He knows what he did. Made a PowerPoint banner for me. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think finally in this book, the 2 gods, Zoken, a fist of eyes.
That's just a dude making a hand puppet.
Yeah, what's a human martial?
That's just a guy talking like this.
Yes, here's your significant and psionic psionic deity, a martial artist. Ascended to godhood. And Ilsensine, no idea what he's the god of.
Could be anything.
Yeah.
Probably puppies.
Puppies.
But yeah.
Here, that is the god of molesting eggs.
Delicious egg brain. But yeah. Apparently there's apparently there's a god of mind flayers.
God for everything back in 3.5.
I was gonna
It really
say.
is, but like, I don't know if this appears anywhere else, including in deities and demigods.
I don't think it does.
Yeah. And here's this nice psionic orrery. What does it do? No idea. But it looks neat.
Onto the orbs.
Yeah. Alright, that's that book. A little bit more crunchy than I usually do, but again, most people don't touch this book, so...
Okay, so I have thoughts about this now that we've gone over this.
Yep.
First off, I have a couple questions for you. Number one, when did this book come out?
This book, fairly early actually, because we're doing it right now. Specifically, April of 2004.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That book's old enough to drink.
This edition is
All
old
right.
enough to drink.
So having, like I said, never seen this before, and now having seen this, I'm of 2 minds about what it makes me think of when I see this system.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, like traditional D&D, and traditional D&D magic specifically, comes from a more Tolkien-esque or like old school, sword and sorcery novels, where wizards were people who were in towers and learned specific magical spells. Fireball may be a generic-ass name, but they're learning the spell Fireball. They don't just have the ability to summon up a sphere of flame and throw it. At least in like the traditional fantasy stuff. But there's a lot of sci-fi novels that were in like the 60s and 70s, especially the 80s, that veered into science fantasy, where some guy is part of this weird, freaky world where people just have these powers, and a lot of those powers were just explained away by the authors of the time, mostly through bad science, as I've unlocked all the powers of my mind. And that's exactly what I think of with like the psionics powers. Is I am using 100% of my brain power, and now I can teleport parts of you to Neptune or some bullshit.
Yes.
Yeah.
The other thing is that, like, from a more modern standpoint, this is probably the system I would use if assuming that we did not have any of the other better options that we do now. If I was still stuck with 3.5, this is probably what I would start pinning like an anime style system, like the jutsus from Naruto, or the
No, we'll get there.
Really?
Yes.
or
Both the 9 swords exist.
Uh-huh.
or like the I forget what they call it in Bleach, but the underpinning magic system
Ito.
spells. Yeah. Or stuff like that.
Wait, was it Keto or Hado? No, I think it was Keto.
I think it was Keto. Or like the Yu Yu Hakusho stuff, which is just like about energy projection.
spirit power.
Really yeah, it's spirit power. So it's just two very disparate things of these old school sci-fi fantasy novels and anime that both I think are fairly well served by this book. I don't know. I'm coming at this from a completely right angle, probably, to
No,
how
not
most people think.
not
of it,
completely.
but-
The thing is, like, it is still very much written for a fantasy setting, which is the part that does
Yeah.
rub people weirdly. Because I mean,
yeah,
like,
you got plenty of fantasy settings where instead of wizards like living in towers, wizards are just people who tapped into like the psychic gestalt or something, or the Force, or whatever weird, balls out 80s concept you want to come up with.
Yeah.
Regular
And-
wizards are allowed to be members of society and don't have to hide away in towers with Riddle.
and that kind of also getting at the other thing is, okay, if it is a fantasy, or you are playing a fantasy tabletop RPG, the settings, one, this is somewhat built into the settings because it's Psionics is to some extent, you have at the very least monsters that manifest it, so having a player character have some type of psychic powers of one sort, or even being built around outright aid manifesting them, is that as far of a stretch as it sounds in a D&D setting, when you already have kind of like the mind flayer?
Yep.
And well, I do get the feel of the old, or the other thing is, like, D&D actually doesn't do a very good job quite of doing the old, like, Conan the Barbarian style either, in a few respects, because the spell casting doesn't really reflect that style. The spell casting in those books are almost, they're much rarer, not really done, or anyone who casts spells doesn't cast spells that much, and it's usually like the big bad evil guy, where the main character is mainly the well, in Conan it's literally a barbarian, but is like the big burly fighter.
Just all wizards of the black arts. We understand this.
Yeah. So you are kind of rubbing, so it does kind of run into a completely different fantasy, and at a certain point D&D just kind of becomes its own animal rather than just aping on several different fantasy concepts. And this is one thing that actually also kind of distinguishes it, is the players and the DM can but don't have to add various elements and things. And the other thing about Psionics is this is also very easy to reflavor, because this is just another magic system. If you don't want Psionics in your world, you can still have players run stuff from this book, because as I've gone over, the book is over fair and everything in it kind of fits together pretty well in like this nice little package. It is some of the best design that you actually get from a 3-5 book for quite a while, and holds up even later into the edition. The feat section, I didn't go over anywhere near everything that was actually a reasonably takeable feat. There are other feats that I left out for brevity's sake, if you can believe that. That are sometimes, some of them are more niche, like expending your psionic focus for +10 on jump checks is not in a vacuum great or all that good. It is funny, and who knows, there might be a prestige class that like you want to power game jump checks.
There may or may not be an entire set of martial arts that utilize jump checks.
Yes, there may or may not be an entire set of martial arts that utilize jump checks. But yeah, and in general, it's very easy to just reflavor as another form of magic. You can just rename Scion to Mystic, for example. Which I think is a very meritorious addition to any campaign, especially if you were looking to direct people away from like wizard or sorcerer.
Yeah.
Because they're still like the Scion still ends up being somewhere in the realm of like. Well, okay, it ends up being somewhere in the realm of sorcerer in a loose sense. In occasionally they will have something that is just outright disruptive to the plot. That if you don't know they have it, might be an accidental surprise at the table. But they're not quite as bad as wizard, whose tools of disruptive spells just kind of grows much faster over time. Or toolbox of disruptive spells can grow much faster over time. And also, they don't generally trivialize combat anywhere near as easily as a sorcerer or a wizard can. With stuff like, here I cast a web, and now all these melee combatants are just kind of stuck in a tar pit, slowly coming up to us, being beat to death by the fighter.
What are you talking about? Every time I mess something up, I just go back and reset an entire round.
Or... or you can manifest that power precisely once.
Shit, Jim died. Okay, time to reset a round.
You had it coming.
Watch out, Jim. Oh, Steve died this time. Time to reset another round.
Yeah. Alright, at a certain point, you're going to lose a level.
Time to really infuriate the DM by resetting a round, then casting the spell that resets a round on that round.
That's evil.
So, the other amusing part is it does cost 1,000. I think it does specifically state in the spell that you have to.
It does cost 1,000 experience. That's true.
No, I'm just wondering if it wasn't.
I think it takes a full round to cast them.
No,
It's standard action.
it's standard action. There it is.
There's nothing preventing you from doing it again.
No, but you still pay the XP cost. Okay.
Yes, you do pay the PXP cost every time you cast it.
Yeah. So, which is how you would assume it would work, but I don't put anything stupid past this edition because there was a non-zero chance they might have accidentally worded as.
I went back in time, so I didn't pay the XP cost because that round didn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At which point you have just trapped the entire campaign in a Groundhog Day loop of 6 seconds.
It's because the round still your memory of it and apparently XP you spent still exists.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't put them past.
It's weird. I cast the spell that reverts back around, and now every enemy changed its actions to beat the shit out of me.
Strangely enough, the other player characters did too. I mean, eventually. It took us an hour and a half to figure out where everything was and what everyone's hit points were at a round ago. But after that happened...
I cast it, then the DM said a dozen inevitables show up. And just pound the fuck out of me.
So the problem is my group decided, instead of waiting for to come around for the characters to do it, they just beat the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I didn't complain because I knew I had deserved it.
Why didn't you dodge?
But yeah, that one power aside, I just like this system in general as well.
Yeah, seems like a fun one.
Yeah. But yeah, this book took a long time, but I expected it to take a long time, so that's pretty much all we're going to get to this week. I think Sunday is, are we taking Sunday off?
Possibly. I have to talk about the people and see.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Any case, Sunday may or may not be doing things because of real life things we have to deal with. But join us on Monday for more Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon,
Ultra Pain.
all the way up to Seed 10 now, because in their hubris, they took the Meth Weasel out of their party and everything went to shit.
Watchog blessed us with his presence and you spurned him. No wonder you failed that well.
Bless.
I
Bless?
will spurn Watchdog every time.
Yeah, Watchog is the snowflame of the Pokemon universe.
What?
Cocaine is his god.
Watchog is nowhere near as good as Snowflake.
I don't know, we got a lot of laughs out of him.
Oh, I mean, sure, but don't sully the name of Snowflame to watch.
Get a modifier banner to put a Watchog in it.
Pretty sure Snowflame ain't on a watch list.
Oh, Snowflame is probably on a watch list. He is a
Snowflame's-
cocaine-powered superhero, after all.
he's on several watch
Okay,
lists,
he's on
I'm
a
pretty sure.
different different watch list.
Yeah, and join us back here again on Thursday for we can get deeper into D&D 3.5, where we'll, at the very least, we're going to go over more than just complete Divine, I goddamn hope.
No problem.
I know Complete Divine is nowhere near as long as this book, and I have even less to say on it. But yeah, till then, I'm Vincent.
I've been the Krampus.
I've been Shiv.
I've been Hunter Green.
And I'm Vincent. And
I've been the god of psionics!
oh, not you again.
Psionicles.
And I could read your mind, and it says Hindsight's 2020.